the way to create the printed circuit board is to, while you're still in your schematic, choose File, and then Convert to Printed Circuit Board. That will launch the DipTrace Printed Circuit Board editor. So here are all of your components that you just imported into your printed circuit board design package. And there's no longer any logical components. All the grounds are now connected by these logical wires, but they're not actual traces. They're just logical wires. These components are real. This is what's going to go onto your eventual printed circuit board, but there's no printed circuit board. And to make it, so we got to start off someplace. We got to start off by creating where the printed circuit board is. So let's choose under Objects, Place Board Outline. So I'm going to start off at the origin. Now I've got a really fine grid here. I'm going to make that grid coarser to make it easier to place. I'm going to put it at a 0.2 grid spacing. I'll click the origin, and then I'm going to make this my printed circuit board. And then enter when you're done. And you'll see it's converted it changed it to a purple outline. There's a certain art in choosing the right size. If you choose it too small, you're not going to be able to auto route all your traces. If you choose it too large, it just looks large and ungainly. It's going to increase the cost of your project. There's many different layers here. We're going to have to move all these over onto our printed circuit board. You can't see the rest of the purple. It is a purple rectangle, but it's being hidden by the blue origin lines right now. Okay, so you want to go back to your schematic and start grouping like components together. You can't see how these things, I mean, you can see roughly how they're connected here, but many of these wires are sort of arbitrarily drawn. If I move this LCD screen up here, it's not necessarily even drawing these logical wires to the closest possible value. If you press F12, it'll update those wires. Did you see what just happened? If I press F12, it'll update the wires to sort of snap to the nearest logical connections where they should be snapped. Because after all, for a ground wire, ground is all through these things. So unless you press F12, it will not automatically update this. And you don't need to press F12 at all. The only reason why I'm saying this is because you want to try to minimize the length of these rat's nest wires. And the way to do that is not by looking at the rat's nest, but by looking at the schematic. And the schematic, for instance, will tell you that nearby this LCD screen is this IC chip. So you just want to have them close by. If you had them at opposite ends, you'd end up having these really long wires everywhere. Just for the purpose of this talk, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to move these guys over pretty rapidly because there's no sense in taking forever trying to set this thing up perfectly if it's just for an exercise. Now, there is one thing about right places to put stuff. These jacks, they definitely want to go on the outside of the board. So when it's highlighted, you can rotate it. And now this is on the outside. And now that I've got my board placed, I'm going to put my spacing much finer so I can bring it much closer to the side of the board. As you're placing these components, you obviously can't place them on top of each other. And that's now maybe it's clear why you have these outlines in green to show you the size of the components. You should be able to see for R4 that this is just a bad connection. It should be derotated R4 to make the wires cleaner. So now, if you can derotate things as you place them, you'll have a cleaner board outline. I'm going to try, looks like a lot of these wires are crossed. So I'm going to try rotating this, and that's obviously just better. I'm going to try seeing F12. Does that make it? Yeah, really no good place to put any of these guys.